this being my first one here, I'm very happy to see all of you. So I'm going to be reading from my novel that came out in June, The Ballad of Perilous Graves. It is a sort of blaxploitation Pippi Longstocking adventure set in a version of New Orleans where music is a form of sorcery, and 9 songs have escaped from Professor Longhair's enchanted piano and manifested around the city as colorful street people. And so my title character, Perry Graves, is a failed magician who has to team up with his baby sister Brittany and his one true love Peaches Lavelle and return the songs home before the city crumbles. So for this section, Perry has ventured into an underwater bar beneath Bayou St. John, and he's looking for his missing grandfather, who was also kidnapped around the same time that the songs were missing. A wave of sound and smell broke over Perry as he stepped into the cut. The aroma of the place was so intense that Perry had a hard time picking out scents. All he knew was that there were good ones and bad, and some of the smells were entirely unfamiliar. The sounds of at least 3 different songs, punctuated with the sibilants and gutturals of speech, the clinking of ice, the sounds of billiard balls colliding, warred with each other, presenting an overall impression so tangible, so there, that Perry felt as if he could have touched it. It wasn't just that he was standing beyond the threshold of a starship that made Perry feel light years from home. It was also that the cut looked even more alien than the cantina from Star Wars. The front room was cavernous, so much so that Perry thought maybe the place was bigger on the inside than it was without. At first, Perry thought the club was lit by giant bulbous colored lanterns, but he realized after a beat or two that the lanterns were ticking slowly across the ceiling, crashing into each other in midair, and crawling over each other in slow motion. They were giant lightning bugs with big, fat, glowing butts. Perry couldn't be sure of their size. The room was so large and the ceiling was so high that the bugs could be the size of Peach's dog Karate, who weighed exactly 56 pounds. A haze of roiling smoke hung above the tables and the 3 bars, but the smoke was not just one uniform color. Colors coiled around one another, swirling and eddying, and sometimes disappearing into nothing before being replaced by new clouds. Perry hated the smell of cigarette smoke, and he'd never liked the look of it either, but there was a certain beauty to these clouds. Perry tried to think how one would smoke underwater, and imagined the smoke must come in bubbles that people blew. But if you're breathing water, then there are no bubbles coming out your mouth, and the smoke wasn't smoke at all, was it? It was more like strands of colored water threading together. And then there were the bar's patrons. A 6-foot mustachioed catfish hovered by a table to Perry's right, and seeing him reminded Perry once again that he was actually underwater, that he was on the bottom of Bayou St. John. Still, the sheer absence of physical distress as Perry stood locking eyes with that giant fish, made him feel taller, stronger, and more capable than ever before. Was this how Peaches felt all the time? The hardest thing to get used to was the way the water pushed on him. Every so often, a current would rush by, the weaker ones tickling his fingers or brushing lightly against him, and the stronger ones pulled or pushed with such force that Perry had to tread water just to stay in one place. How did people ever get used to this? A high nutria, about 4 feet tall and with orange buck teeth the size of playing cards, swam over to Perry, kicking his back legs. "What it do, partner?" he lisped. "Something you need?" "Yeah," Perry said. "I'm looking for my daddy. He in here somewhere, but it's time for him to come home." "Who your daddy is?" "Jimmy Dean Haybear Jr.," Perry said. The nutria didn't bother pretending to search the crowd. "I don't know nobody by that name," he said. "He must be somewhere else." Perry tried not to let on, but as he conversed with the nutria, he kept his eye on the catfish as well. Up till now, the fish had been nursing a transparent sac filled with amber liquid held with one of its antennae, and now he rested it on the table, watching Perry as keenly as Perry watched him. "I know he in here," Perry said, addressing the catfish more than the nutria. "I seen him jump into the bayou yesterday. You let me talk to a manager." "Hey now," said the nutria. Perry raised his voice and flailed his arms. "I said I want to talk to the manager. I want my daddy back. All y'all do is trick people. You keep them liquored up, so all they do is gamble and play pool." At the edge of his vision, Perry saw a shock of carrot-colored afro glide by. His first instinct was to pause his yelling until he knew Peaches and Brindy had not been detected, but to do so would have been falling down on the job. Perry could feel himself losing steam, but he knew a surefire way to bring his performance home. He thought of Daddy Deke. He thought of his grandfather held somewhere, scared, alone. He thought about how badly he wanted the old man returned to him. Immediately, Perry felt a dizzying surge of rage. "You give me my daddy back right now. I'm down here underwater and I just want my daddy home. He got a squashed up hat, squinty brown eyes, greasy hair, and a wrinkly plaid suit, and I know somebody's seen him tonight." "Now look," the nutria growled. His lisp had disappeared. "I got things to do. I can't be bothered with no little kid. You can't come in this joint, you too young. Your mama wants your daddy home so bad, she can come on down here and get him her damn self." "Where's the manager at?" Perry demanded. "Why don't you let me walk through and point him out? Then you toss him right out and I'll take him home." The catfish swam over and nudged the nutria gently with its flank. "Listen, Barry," it said, its antenna twitching. "I seen this kid's daddy in the velvet room. Let me take him back there so he can get on out and leave everybody alone." The nutria's shoulders sagged in defeat. "Papa Nguyen, you messing up my night," he said. "Take the kid back, but you responsible for making sure he and his daddy get on out of here." "All right then," Papa Nguyen said. "Swim after me." If anybody has any questions, I can take a couple before I sit back down.
I have a question. The section you read, you're a very visual writer, and I really enjoyed it. But I was wondering, since the book plays so much with music and sound, how you found writing about sound in that same very tactile way.
Well, I found it necessary, but I made my way into the book through sound to begin with. Like, a lot of the early preparation for it consisted of taking a course on the history of New Orleans music at the University of New Orleans from Connie Atkinson. And so the way she described sound and the way I was able to search down the songs and the artists that she mentioned really sort of informed my imagining of the book from the very start.
So you're not a musician yourself at all?
I'm not a musician myself. I'm more of an obsessive music nerd, but I wish I was. All right, that's everything. I'll slow down.